What's up? It's Josh here, back with another Kansas City Chiefs related video. And today I'm joined by Tucker D. Franklin, who is the deputy editor for Arrowhead Report over at SI Now and host of Roughing the Kicker, which you can listen to their podcast and watch their show here on YouTube. So, Tucker, how's it going today?
Hey man, it's going great. I appreciate you having me on. Can't wait to talk some football.
Yeah, for sure. Me too. I'm glad we can make it work. So, honestly, with my first question for you, I'm going to put you right on the spot. I'm not going to
Good.
lie. So obviously by now free agency has kind of simmered down. You'll have your like flurries of like little moves like we've seen over the past couple of days now already, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But if you had to give a grade for like a letter grade for Brett Veach's free agency, what would you give him?
That's a really good question because I really like the Joe Tooney signing because I think that does well for this offense. We've seen the interior of this offensive line struggle really ever since Patrick Mahomes became the quarterback. So shoring
Yeah.
up that offensive line, the interior of the offensive line is
Right.
really good. And I like Kyle Long too. That's a 1 year deal, not too shabby. Jerron Reed, that's a good signing too. I like that one. So like it's a bunch of good signings. But then you look and they have two major holes at tackle. They still really need a number two wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
And Dan Sorensen was re-signed fine. I wish that they had a different third safety.
Yeah.
I kind of wish they had another linebacker too. I wish they would have went out and got somebody instead of settling for Ben Neiman. So it's probably, I would say a B minus. I'll give it a B minus or a C plus. That's kind of what I was going for back and forth there. It's in that ballpark.
Yeah, before like the Reed and the Blythe moves that came rather recently, I'm going to be honest, and I made a video and I had a lot of people that agreed with me, and then I had a lot of people that disagree with me. I gave him like a D plus because I was like, because like you were talking about right then, it's like, well, he got Joe Tooney, he got Kyle Long, and then it's like, wait, well, we still have a hole here, and then we have a hole here, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute, like, what are we really doing here? But obviously, like, you can't put that all on Brett Veach because when he's offering guys, really fair, more than fair deals, and they're not picking you. I mean, it's like, what more can you really do? I'm not sure. I mean, when Andy Reid's sending you pictures of the Lombardi Trophy and you still turn that down, we didn't want you anyways.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess I can kind of already tell what your favorite move is just based off what you said about like Tooney, but maybe I'm wrong. But what was your favorite move so far of free agency?
That's tough. I think it has to be Tooney just because of the nature of the deal. It's a little bit more money than I kind of would have hoped for or was
Yeah.
expecting, but I think it's a good move because we see Patrick Mahomes drift a lot in the pocket, right? That's one of the big issues that we hear a lot. And it's because the interior offensive line has never really been that great. So bringing in Tooney to have him shore up that left guard situation could really help with the left tackle if you got to start Lucas Niang or another rookie over at left tackle. I think that'll help out. For the long term, Joe Tooney there is pretty solid. But Jerron Reed, man, that signing's pretty big for the pass rush too. I know
Yes.
what my first like reaction was like, man, he's a three tech. Chris Jones is a three tech. What are they doing? They need an edge. They need someone to play, a 4 eye, a 7. And it's like he doesn't do that. But Chris Jones likes to play on the outside. Maybe Chris Jones can get a little bit more snaps there, get a little creative with the defensive fronts. And honestly, I didn't really hate the Jaron Reed signing at all.
Yeah, I'll actually add my own 2 cents to each of those.
Mhm.
So, like the interior offensive line, I'm really happy with it now. I mean, you look at Tooney, LDT is coming back. We don't quite know where he's at football shape wise, but like, I mean, you're still getting LDT back, so I mean
Right.
that's worth something. Brought in Kyle Long, and then a lot of people don't really talk about it, but Andrew Wiley, he was a restricted free agent. I think they tendered him, so he should be coming back. And I mean, he was still one of your starting guards last year, and he was all right. I mean, you at least have him as depth. So there, and then Austin Blythe. I think that's
Mhm.
a surefire upgrade from last year, especially in the run game as well. I think Blythe is an upgrade from Ryder personally, because, a lot of people, they kind of like raved about this. Like a lot of the national analysts, they raved about like this, oh, Austin Ryder didn't allow a sack last year. And it's like,
Mhm.
well, but how much was that Patrick Mahomes being his quarterback more so than Austin Ryder? Because when I watched him personally, like he couldn't really move anyone. Like he would hold up okay, but he wasn't really moving guys around or nothing like that. So yeah, I mean, I'm really happy with the interior. And then you mentioned the Reed signing. That really was one of the moves that kind of like really just brought Veach's free agency to satisfaction for me, because we needed pass rush help. People talk
Mhm.
about the offensive line in the Super Bowl, and yeah, it was terrible. It was the number one biggest reason we lost. But also the defensive line in that game did absolutely nothing. I think they got 4 pressures on Tom Brady all night. So that move was huge in my opinion. And Frank Clark, I'm sure you guys have beaten the Frank Clark horse to death over at where you do, but so have we over here. And it's like, you can't really complain about it anymore. Like the least the Chiefs can do is just help him out as much as possible. And that's exactly what they did when they brought in Jerron Reed.
Mhm. Yeah, I think so too. And I have a whole lot of respect for Frank Clark and what he does. He deals with that
Yeah.
illness a whole lot. I know people that have that illness and they are knocked out of their everyday lives. They can't even imagine how he goes and plays football after that. So I have a whole lot of respect for what Frank Clark does, and bringing in Reed, a former teammate of him, Taco Charlton, a former teammate of Frank Clark. Those will make him be comfortable. Those will take some attention away from him. I think it's going to be fine.
Yeah, and I would even argue that it almost helps Chris Jones more just having someone on the
Yeah.
interior that can get pressure. Because like, really big fan of Noddy, but he's kind of one dimensional in that aspect,
Right.
of stopping the run. He's your run stopper. That's what he does. He's not really a pass rusher. And then Tershawn Wharton, I think, was your second best pass rushing defensive tackle. I think he had like 2 sacks, which was the next highest next to Chris Jones, at least among the D tackle rotation. So Reed is at least someone in there that can get some pressure, take some of the double teams off Jones, and I think that's a really big thing.
Mhm.
And so I saw you tweeted this earlier today, so this kind of like goes into my next question I had for you. So Alden Smith signed a 1-year deal with the Seattle Seahawks, and then yesterday Jadeveon Clowney signed a 1-year deal with the Cleveland Browns. And before those past couple moves, I was staring at that defensive end, that free agent defensive end market, and I'm like, why aren't the Chiefs jumping in on this? And 2 names are off the board there. And I saw you tweet today that Alden Smith would have been a move that you would have liked. Me too. I actually wrote about him potentially
Yeah.
having a homecoming in Kansas City because I mean, that's at least someone. Because I'm like, we talk about Brett Veach's free agency and heading into the draft, they still have a bunch of needs, and it's like, well, you could patch one up right there and maybe get someone in like the mid to late rounds that can develop a little bit, but then you at least have a veteran as a stopgap. What's kind of your take there?
Yeah, Brett Veach doesn't like to go into the draft with a lot of major holes. So, especially when we talk about tackle, I think we could see something develop
Mm-hmm.
leading up to the draft. Not that I've heard anything or anything like that, but
Yeah.
just looking at his past, you could see possibly Melvin Ingram still hasn't signed anywhere else. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's interesting. Alden Smith is a guy who really had a resurgence last year in Dallas, and I like him. He's a Mizzou guy. I'm a Mizzou guy,
Yeah.
so
Same
I like
here.
to see those Mizzou guys do well in the big leagues and kind of come up. But he's also a Kansas City guy too. And maybe that was something that he wasn't interested in coming home. Some guys don't like that. Some
Yeah,
guys
and
really
sometimes
want
it's
to do
better for
that.
them. Sometimes it's better for them because
Right.
home. That's where some of their problems start. And I don't know Alden personally.
Mhm.
Like I'm not saying like
Right,
he
right.
had, but I mean, you can read about it on the internet. I mean, he had his problems start when he was at Mizzou, and yeah, sometimes going home just isn't the best thing for players.
Yeah, and I do like him as a football player. I mean, he's going to be good in Seattle.
Yeah,
They needed somebody else, after Jerron Reed. They don't play the same position, but it's still
yeah,
filling a gap. And I think the Chiefs, will probably do some. I don't know. I think that they'll probably address tackle before they address edge because I think they can address edge easier at 31 than they can address left tackle. If that makes sense.
yeah. And I just like I'm really wanting another edge presence because like the Chiefs' run
Hmm.
defense last year. Like if you look at other teams, the way they ran against the Chiefs, they were always running to that right side every single time, opposite of Frank Clark. Because as much as I criticize Frank Clark, teams do take him seriously as a run
Hmm.
defender. So yeah, it was just, and then also you just help the pass rush out too, because like you said with the Reed thing, like you're happy about it, but you still wanted an end. So
Yeah.
I can agree with that there. But talking about the draft, so there's a bunch of talk about what the Chiefs could possibly do at pick 31. I like to have an open mind about it. They could go Terrace Marshall from LSU or, some exciting pick like that. But man, I can't really see them going anywhere but left tackle. I could be wrong. But what are your thoughts?
I've kind of had a come to Jesus moment is what we've called it about
Yeah.
Jason Owe. I think Jason Owe is an interesting pick just because of his athleticism.
Yeah.
He really fits all the Spagnuolo boxes. I think he's a few pounds short, but that's one of the metrics that Spagnuolo likes that you could actually change, that you actually have a control over. You can't really control your height or your arm length or anything like that.
Yeah.
Your bench press, you can add on to that, and you can add on to your weight, and that's something that he does. At left tackle, it's going to be hard. And we talk about arm length a whole lot. That's been a huge topic of
Yes.
conversation. People are like, oh, how come this is the first time we're talking about arm length in forever? Well, this is the first time the Chiefs have really needed a tackle in forever.
Yeah.
So that's why we're kind of in this mode here. And Andy Reid hasn't selected a player in the NFL draft that has under 34 and a quarter inch arms. And there aren't a whole lot of guys who are going to be, the at 31, who will be a reasonable pick at 31 that
Yeah.
have 34 and a quarter inch arms. So
Yeah.
either I'm saying one of two things is going to happen. Either one, they're going to overdraft like a Stone Forsyth. They're going to go at 31 and they're going to overdraft somebody, according to us. We don't know their board. Maybe that's where they think that Stone Forsyth is good and that's
Yeah.
where he's going to go. That would all be fair. Or number two, they're going to draft another player in another position. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Jason Elway. If Jalen Phillips falls all the way down there, I wouldn't be surprised about that either.
Yeah.
So edge and tackle are kind of the two things I'm looking at the moment.
Yeah, personally, I would have no issue drafting Elway. His pro day, whew, that guy was a
Mhm.
physical monster. But yeah, I could totally see them overdrafting someone, to be honest. And if it's someone like an Eichenberg or maybe a Leatherwood, those are a lot of players. Those are two names that frequently are mocked to the Chiefs at like 31. To be honest, like if you're ever going to overdraft, reach for a position, if you have a guy that maybe doesn't have as much upside as maybe one of the top 4 or 5 tackles, like a Tevin Jenkins or a Christian Darrisaw, but you still think they can be serviceable for a team that, really needs a left tackle and is a Super Bowl contender, if you're ever going to reach, that's the time to do it, in my opinion. And, a lot of people, I've written like mock drafts and different pieces about different prospects and stuff. And people are like, oh, that's a huge reach. Veach would never do that. And it's like, well, really? Because we've seen Veach reach plenty of times before. I don't think that's really a debate. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
He does have kind of a sketchy drafting history. You go back and look at some that we've been doing on Riffing the Kicker. We go back and look, and some of the pictures, like, whew, I mean, he's one of two general managers never to trade back in his time as a GM. Dave Gettleman of the Giants is the other one, but he's only traded up. So that being said, too, wouldn't be shocked if the Chiefs trade up for a tackle if they like, say Darrisaw or
Mhm.
they like Slater and he's still there at
Well,
20. They trade up for him.
yeah, the thing is, I was actually going to talk about that next because
Yeah.
my editor over at Arrowhead Addict, Matt Connor, he brought up an
Mhm.
interesting point, and I ended up taking this idea and writing about it. But he was like, Veach was so aggressive in trying to get Trent Williams. He was willing to go like above and beyond $100 million to get this guy. Like he was willing to move heaven and earth for the number, not just a good left tackle, but the best left tackle probably in all of football in free agency. So who are we to think he wouldn't have the same aggression in the draft to go up and get the most sure thing at tackle? And I really had to think about that for a minute. It's like, yeah, maybe the Chiefs do trade up from 31.
I think it's very realistic. I don't think that we can rule that out, just because of his past, and he likes to trade up. But you look at the players he's traded up for: McCole Hardman, Breland
Yeah.
Speaks, a couple of guys that haven't really done a whole lot. Still waiting on Bo Peep Keys. That
Yeah.
was only a last year selection. That was the seventh
Right.
round pick too. So can't put a whole lot of stock into that. But trading up in the second round twice to get those guys, just it gives me a little bit of the heebie-jeebies. But hey, you know what? I like to give Brett Veach a fair shake. Some people like to call me a Brett Veach hater every now and again because I
Yeah. I
get
get the
worried
same
about his
thing.
drafting. But I'm just like, hey, I'm just being cautious and making sure we're aware of all the angles. But in all honesty, I really like Brett Veach. I like what he does. He's really good in free agency, really good at locking these guys down, really good at bringing guys in. I just want to see him take another step in the draft. And the 2020 draft was a
Yes.
great step in the right direction. And he's progressed since 2018. 2018 was catastrophically bad.
Yeah.
2019 got better. 2020, I think, is going to be better than the 2019 class. So I want to see 2021 be even better than those three classes.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing, what you like to see is he has been getting like a tad bit better each year in those
Mhm.
drafts, I would say. We're still waiting on a few guys to pan out, but yeah, you get what I mean.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna ask you this because like I saw your videos that you did about like the top 5 Brett Veach draft picks. I watched those
Mhm.
and I really enjoyed them. But I remember your one partner that was on, I forget who it was. He mentioned about how like when he was making his list, he started looking at him and he's like, you realize how many like underwhelming picks there are.
Yeah.
So, when we talk about all the holes this team has and everything like that, I'll put you on the spot again. In a draft that the Chiefs, they need like day one contributors at like multiple spots. Do you trust Brett Veach to get it done?
Maybe not entirely, just because of the past. This is Missouri, man. It's a show me state. You got
Mm-hmm.
to be able to show me something. And 2020 was a good step in the right direction to get L'Jarius Sneed, a good solid contributor.
Mm-hmm.
His first round pick, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you know. we can argue about the value. People aren't really
Yeah.
changing their mind about the value of
I
running
always
backs.
said I'm always going to hate the pick more than the player, and it's kind of unfair to
Yeah, yeah,
Clyde, but it's
yeah.
just the way I feel.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. So we look at that and you say, okay, he was a solid contributor. Round two, Willie Gay, kind of tough, but that's just how the system shook out.
Yeah.
Then you look at round three, Lucas Niang opt out. That's tough to judge that too. But I think, we're looking at these guys and we think, okay, I think he can do it. I think I'm more on the probably 70-30 on the side that I think
Yeah.
he can do it. But there's a reasonable doubt, right? That
Yeah.
it doesn't look like he could pull in some guys that could start day one.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be an interesting draft. I'm honestly like sweating bullets every
Hmm.
day if I have to come on a podcast and explain why Veach felt like he had to draft Travis Etienne at 31, I'm going to explode. But yeah,
Oh,
and then just walking it back to left tackle a little bit, if he does end up trading up or trading for, I know Orlando Brown has been rumored a lot. I'm not sure how
yeah.
likely that is, but if he does something like that, like honestly, a lot of people they're talking about how they don't want to give up all the future picks because this team really needs cheap labor and stuff like that. And it's like, I kind of agree, but at the same time, like if you don't have a good left tackle, then what's the point of the season?
Yeah. It's the trading for Orlando Brown thing is really interesting to me because I think the Chiefs could pull it off. It's the fact that if the Ravens want to trade with the Chiefs, that's always been my big hang up. I
Yeah,
think, I like to say, Orlando Brown actually plays right tackle right now. He did play left tackle last year. I think 11 games he played at left tackle. He wants to play left tackle. So I think
yeah,
that it could work. It's almost a completely opposite scheme in Baltimore than it
yes,
is
it
in Kansas
is.
City. So that'd be kind of tough for a little adjustment there. Uh, but I think that when you start talking about it, I don't think it would take a first round pick. I think it would be like a second and a third, something like that. I don't think it'd be a first rounder. That's something to look at. But if you're the Ravens, why would you give your biggest competitor in your conference the piece they need the most? It just
Yeah,
doesn't make any competitive sense for me. I understand that everyone's available for a certain price, but if you're the Chiefs, you're not going to trade Patrick Mahomes away to the Chargers or the Raiders or the Broncos. I know they're not in the division, so let's just say, the Colts. The Colts need a quarterback after Carson Wentz. If the Colts come knocking on the Chiefs' door and say, "Hey, we'll give you five first round picks for him," you still wouldn't trade him because they're going
yeah.
to be in the AFC, and that's interconference division or competition. So that's the thing that really holds me up with the whole Orlando Brown situation.
Yeah, and the Ravens are just going to be able to drive the price up on you because of that fact.
Right?
Because
Yeah.
you're going to have to pay like 180 cents on the dollar to get them just because you are the Chiefs and you're in their conference. So
Hmm.
it's an interesting conversation, but when you start talking logic, you start to lose confidence in that move happening in about 5 minutes. But
That's true.
um, one more question I got for you before we
Hmm.
wrap it up. I just got to ask you who are some of your draft crushes that you would like to see Brett Veach take in this year's draft?
Ooh, oh man, I've looked at a lot of players this season, so I mean, I really like starting in kind of the later-ish rounds there. Landon Young, guy from Tennessee, I think it would be a really good sixth round pick. Chiefs have pick 207. Wouldn't
Hmm.
hate that pick there. That's a good developmental tackle. Dan Moore, another really good developmental tackle. He's got the length. He's not top 20 guy by any stretch of the means. I could see him. He's a lot like Liam Eichenberg. If Liam Eichenberg is a good football player, you don't really know what his ceiling is.
Yeah,
Dan Moore's a little bit, not as good as Liam Eichenberg, but he doesn't really have a ceiling, if that makes sense.
yeah, I know what you mean.
So yeah, so there and then positional wise, man, skills position, I should say. I really like Josh Matterbebe. He's an athletic freak. Love him. I love Tylan Wallace. Diami Brown's another guy that we
Yeah,
love.
that's my
Monroe
guy.
St. Brown. Yeah. Dude, there's so many good wide receivers in this class. This class is so deep, and it's deep in slot guys, which the Chiefs really need. They need those outside guys, which they can get them. They can get the outside guys kind of later on in the draft. And when you look at the interior guys, man, I love Landon Dickerson. I think that he is a
Yeah.
phenomenal football player when healthy. I get that he's had 4 season-ending injuries out of 5 seasons, but when
Hmm.
he's on the field, he's the best offensive lineman on the field. He won the Remington Award, which is the best center in the country, beating out Creed Humphrey, beating out Josh Myers. So
Yeah.
I really like him. I do also really like Creed Humphrey and
Yeah.
and Josh Myers, but it would go Lando, Creed, and then Josh Myers there for me on the offensive line. Yeah.
Yeah, those are all good names. Like I said, I really love Diami Brown. He's like, I've just fallen in love with him because, if you are talking about a guy that can come in and do a lot of the things that Sammy Watkins did. He's one of them because I don't know if you've watched any film on him. I have.
Mhm.
And one of the first things that stands out to me is not his pass catching, but it's his blocking. Like I consistently
Mhm.
saw him give his ball carrier 5, 10 extra yards just because of a little extra push. I think he's someone that can grow into that X role. And then another wide receiver that I really like is Marquez Stevenson from Houston. He's an
Yeah.
absolute burner. He's more of a developmental prospect, but if the Chiefs were going to double up on wide receiver, I'd love to see them get him in maybe the later rounds. And then, like you said, Landon Dickerson, I'm not sure where his stock is at right now because of his injury concerns, but if he's there in the second round, I think you almost have to take him because I mean he's someone that was probably going to be a first round center if not for injuries.
Mhm. I'd trade up for him in the second round. If he's
Yeah.
there at like 45, I think you trade up from 63 for him. I think that he's that good. He's in Indianapolis right now doing the medical combine, which is good
Mhm.
for him. Could be bad for the Chiefs, but it's good for him to get kind of the ACL looked at. He was doing cartwheels at the Alabama Pro Day with no
Yeah.
brace on, so he's making really good progress.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting draft this year. It's going to be probably arguably the most important draft of Veach's tenure and maybe one of the most important drafts in Chiefs history because, I mean, there's
Yeah.
just so much on the line. You know, the fans are getting anxious. They want to get back to that Super Bowl. And anyone that watched the Super Bowl knows this team's got some holes to fill. So it'll be interesting. And Tucker, thanks for joining me today. And hopefully we can meet up again pretty soon and do another one of these.
Not a problem, man. I would absolutely love to.
All right, sounds good. So I'll link Tucker's Twitter and his Roughing the Kicker show in the description. Go check that out and make sure you like, share, subscribe so other Chiefs fans can find us. Let's get to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the month. And make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com and Arrowhead Addict. That's all I got for today, guys. Peace.